Months ago, President Donald Trump signed the $1.3 trillion Omnibus bill, which is seen as a disaster by many of his supporters, including us here at Big League Politics. For the last 24 hours, we've been reporting and also leading a massive campaign behind the scenes and with activists across the country to try to convince President Trump to veto this bill. I believe in my heart of hearts that President Trump did want to veto this bill. That's what he said. However, he went ahead and signed it. And it's now time for us to look around and figure out who is to blame. First of all, we have to blame the people he was negotiating against who held our military hostage during a time of war. President Trump signed this bill because he felt that he needed to fund the military, especially with our situation in North Korea escalating, and we need to show strength. Situation in the Middle East, always a powder keg. Who are these people then who held our United States military hostage in a time of war in order to get all of their nonsense, all of their trillion-dollar corporate welfare handouts into this bill? The Democrats, yes, of course, but we already know they're horrible. Let's talk about the people who are really to blame for this. The people who wrote this bill, the people who gave congressmen less than 24 hours to read it, the people who gave our president less than 24 hours to read it. Those people are named Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. And the White House legislative director, Merck, who comes from the world of Charles and David Koch, who, by the way, were lobbying in favor of DACA during this entire process. The Koch Brothers for DACA, okay? Merck, very close former employee of Mike Pence, worked on Marco Rubio's presidential campaign. Merck, for some reason, is the legislative director in the Trump White House. And aside from that tax cut bill for the rich, which did not go even close to as far as President Trump wanted it to in terms of middle-class tax cuts and tax cuts for the poor, that Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell tax cut bill, what has Merck accomplished in his time as legislative director for the Trump White House? Nothing. He forces our president, apparently, to sign on the same kinds of trillion-dollar omnibus nonsense bills that Barack Obama was signing. How can Paul Ryan claim to be a Catholic, and yet every single omnibus bill he puts forward fully funds Planned Parenthood? There's nothing in this bill for the wall, and in fact, they went out of their way to prevent any new spending for the new wall. So President Trump went to California the other day to look at wall prototypes. Well, this bill specifically has a provision on page 637, I believe, of this massive thing, saying that there can be no new spending for new wall prototypes. Instead, they gave them about $1 billion to repair existing fences, but everything that happens with border security has to have already been approved by a previous law that's already on the books, so there's nothing for the wall. Now, within the last 24 hours, Merck, Trump's legislative director, went to him and said, "Oh, Mr. President, don't worry. We got you $1.6 billion for the wall. That's the best we're going to do. The wall's going forward." Well, that was dishonest, completely dishonest, as we reported, and we got that news out there to activists all over the country. And in fact, President Trump this morning tweeted his acknowledgement that there is nothing for the wall in this. But by then it was too late, apparently. WhiteHouse.gov had already named their live stream, "President Trump participates in bill signing." It was too late. Where was Rand Paul on this? Rand Paul, who claimed that he was going to stall the whole thing. He was going to, take to the Senate floor, like back in the old Rand Paul, Ted Cruz days. And he was going to hold this thing up and force a government shutdown. What happened to that? Oh, he had a behind closed doors meeting with Mitch McConnell, and then all of a sudden, I'm not going to stall it. No big deal. He hasn't tweeted yet today. Good. He should be hiding his head in shame. He's busy getting profiled by the New Yorker and hanging out with celebrities. This is a sad day for Washington. And here's what needs to happen right now. Merck needs to be fired from the White House. Paul Ryan needs to be fired, and Mitch McConnell needs to be fired. And we need a government shutdown the next time one of these awful bills comes along. And President Trump has promised not to sign another one of these things. So what we need to do on the outside is get our activists ready to fight for a new government shutdown situation. Politically, it's a great thing to do. It worked last time in 2014 after Ted Cruz's shutdown. Republicans had a big victory in the midterms, and the shutdown is what we need the next time one of these things comes across the president's desk. But today is a sad day for Washington, so let me just repeat. Merck Short needs to be fired and sent back to Charles and David's little nonprofit groups in Washington. Paul Ryan needs to be fired and sent back to Charles and David's little nonprofit groups in Washington. And Mitch McConnell needs to be fired, and he can go wherever the hell he wants. I don't care about him. They all need to be fired, and we're going to keep fighting. Thank you.